2011, I was at the NCAA tournament as a fan, going, oh boy, we're watching history for sure.
David Taylor, your national champion.
Cael Sanderson has won 8 NCAA championships in a 9-year window.
Since Cael's been to Penn State, it's been lights out. It's been a dynasty. He's produced wrestler after wrestler who live up to or exceed expectations time and time again.
Nickel with the championship for the Nittany Lions.
Cael is extremely secretive.
It's somewhat shrouded in mystery. It's like, how are these guys so incredibly good?
People are attracted to the fact that he's doing things differently and that it works.
I think he is maniacally competitive. The only standard is #1 and victory and doing it the right way.
It's an era that won't be soon forgotten in college wrestling.
You saw the record of Cael Sanderson. No athlete in the history of college competition has gone undefeated with 4 national championships. You could be watching history, Joe.
I too have been wrestling with words how to describe.
Cael is the first and only Division I wrestler to win 4 NCAA titles undefeated.
I think one of the things that everyone kind of thinks about with Cael is how perfect he was as an athlete. 159-0? That's not easy. That's not easy. If that weren't enough, he goes on first year out of college, takes a silver in the world, and then wins an Olympic gold medal in 2004. He pretty much won just about everything he can in this sport.
Cael set an incredible bar for bonus point scoring. He won the Hodge Trophy 3 times, so he wasn't just a guy that won every match, but he's incredibly dominant from freshman to senior year. He was voted the best wrestler in college wrestling on 3 different occasions. He's the greatest college wrestler of all time. As a college coach, Cael Sanderson is regarded as probably the 2nd best coach of all time.
Dan Gable's had the most impressive college wrestling coaching career ever, and Cael is putting himself up in that conversation.
Cael Sanderson has won 8 NCAA championships in a 9-year window, which is Gable levels of dominance.
Cael is like this, seemingly anyways, calm, cool, almost enigmatic figure where you wonder what he's thinking sometimes, and I think he likes that.
I think the public perception of Cael is that he's a total winner, but he's a private person. He keeps to himself. The program is very insulated in that way as well. You know, because of that, a lot of the methods and how they've gotten so great it's somewhat shrouded in mystery. It's like, how are these guys so incredibly good? They're coaching their guys, they're developing their guys in a different sort of way. I think he doesn't want any part of that available or known to the public.
Who was that?
Well, I think as a program, we're continuing to make progress. You know, I think the intensity has increased each year. You know, our plan has continued to develop and is getting better. And I'm just really proud to be here and, you know, having the opportunity to carry the torch here, you know, for the time being, and proud of these guys. I mean, these guys are doing a fantastic job. The work ethic, the attitude, like you said, the intensity, you know, the toughness in the room, everything is continuing to improve. And I'm excited for the future. You know, we're just going to keep doing things the right way, and we're going to have some great teams coming up.
So Cael Sanderson won 4 NCAA titles as a wrestler at Iowa State, was on staff as an assistant at Iowa State before being named the head coach. He was very successful. He did not win an NCAA title, he got 2nd. He actually qualified all 30 of his wrestlers for NCAAs. They won Big 12 all 3 years. He had success, but success to Cael Sanderson and success to everyone else is probably a very different definition, right? So he wasn't winning NCAAs, he wasn't beating Iowa.
Really, you look now at head coaches who are that young, it's really hard for them to have as much success as he did at Iowa State, but it wasn't enough for him.
When I heard that Cael was going to Penn State, I remember going, oh, this is big.
It was shocking when Cael went to Penn State because I don't think anyone had imagined that Cael would ever leave Iowa State. This is your alma mater. You were right there to win NCAAs in 2009. Penn State was always regarded as a fine program, but not a program that was elite, not a program that was optimized either. I think a lot of people thought Pennsylvania is the mecca for high school wrestling. It's where so much of the talent comes from. Why are they not winning? You should be getting these guys. You're in the Big Ten. It's a great school. It kind of has everything, but the success wasn't there.
When Cael left Iowa State, it felt like a betrayal in some ways, and I think partly it was because of the time that happened. Coaches of that high of a profile hadn't done things like that.
Were you disappointed under the circumstances that Cael left?
The main thing was Iowa State deserved to have a chance to win a national title, and I thought that made it very difficult. Cael Sanderson had a great career, but the best is yet to come for Iowa State. They're going to have many, many great years ahead of them.
So I actually have a blog here that Cael Sanderson wrote. It has been a very difficult decision for me and my family to go to Penn State University. I have a deep passion and love for Iowa State University. I have taken the job because the long-term opportunity and the limitless potential of Penn State wrestling. The opportunity to step in and awaken a sleeping giant is exciting. It hurts, but deep down, I know I made the right decision.
There was so much speculation about who the next head coach would be. It was this name, it was that name, and all these different people. Cael Sanderson's name was never involved. He was never in the rumor mill until, boom, Cael Sanderson's the next coach. It makes you sit and think like, okay, what would make him want to jump and leave what everyone else on the outside views as a perfect situation? What does he see at Penn State that maybe we don't necessarily see right now? Because I think it was known they were an underachieving program.
It had to take a lot to get Cael to move from Iowa State to Penn State. Cael wasn't going to leave his alma mater for a team that wasn't going to push all their chips to the center of the table immediately. Like, it was very obvious that something changed at Penn State where they made a decision that they were going to invest resources and attention into making that team successful. They were going to take care of everything else. All he had to worry about was winning wrestling matches and winning national titles. That's a very alluring thing.
I think he believed that he had a clearer path to victory at Penn State than the one that he had at Iowa State. He could go to Penn State and be the biggest show in town and in the biggest wrestling hotbed that existed.
20 seconds left. You can see a count. Who's got the count? That's it. 8-5 win, David Taylor.
David Taylor was a once-in-a-generation recruit and talent. People thought ever since he was a freshman that he's going to be the next big thing.
I just want to get better and better every year, and so far it's worked out for me pretty well.
I mean, the country had their eyes on him since he was 112 pounds.
You looked at his high school career. At the time, it was as good as we've seen. He won 4 Ironman titles. He was, I believe, the first person to ever do that. I think a lot of people thought, this is a guy that can come in and challenge for 4 NCAA titles.
Landing a guy like that can change the trajectory of your school's success for the foreseeable future.
We're not Dapper Dan, but the All-Star Dream Team. What then?
I don't know yet. I'm sure I'll be going out to Iowa State. I'm debating taking some summer school, like 2 classes, and then be ready to go into college.
David Taylor signed his national letter of intent to go to Iowa State, and he never actually went to Iowa State.
You know, Cael Sanderson was my idol since I went to Wasatch wrestling practices when I was 9 years old, and I want to wrestle like him. I want to be the guy in the national finals that scores 20 points. I want to be the guy that's out there just ankle picking, trying to put people on their back, non-stop, trying to wrestle from every single situation. So it was like, okay, I want to wrestle for this guy. So my senior year, I'm going to Iowa State. This is awesome, can't wait. Cael had the awesome opportunity to go to Penn State. So immediately, very first thing I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to Penn State. No doubt, I'm going there.
Here we go, final at 157 pounds. In the blue singlet, that's Bubba Jenkins, national finalist. And in the red singlet, David Taylor, true freshman, 2 Penn State wrestlers. And that is Bubba Jenkins in deep crackback position. It's going to be it. Bubba Jenkins going to win 157 pounds here at East Stroudsburg Open. David Taylor coming in number 2, having a really good day. That was it, wrestling with Cael Sanderson as your coach.
I mean, you can't ask for much more. I mean, the guy's unbelievable. He's everything you can think of to be a good coach. He's got the guidance and stuff, and he knows so much about wrestling. You get in a position, and he'll be like, "Oh, you can do this," and he makes it seem so simple, like it's a game. And when you think about it, when you think about it like a game, it makes wrestling a lot easier. It makes it fun, and that's what I like. I think that's what I like the most about it is it's fun.
So Cael comes to Penn State, and there's a lot of buzz, there's a lot of momentum behind it. He's in the greatest wrestling state. Is he going to be able to do what Penn State hopes he can do?
People were saying that Cael Sanderson had a little bit of an unfair advantage as a beginning coach because there were so many good guys still at Penn State. Frank Molinaro was there, Quentin Wright was still at Penn State, he was really good. Bubba Jenkins, who was incredible, I mean he definitely was the best guy that Penn State still had around. There was a lot for Cael to work with in that first year.
Nice shot, Bubba Jenkins in deep.
They left whatever talent they could in redshirt. So Ed Ruth, he redshirted. Quentin Wright, who was a returning All-American, he redshirted. David Taylor redshirted. Everyone just had a side eye on Penn State. It's like, okay, what are these redshirts doing? What's going on with Bubba Jenkins right now? And then the team they put out there did pretty well. They had Dan Valamont make the NCAA finals.
Frank Molinaro is an All-American. That's big. That lets Penn State fans know that Molinaro's for real. Molinaro's going to have success. He can be a building block for Cael. Generally, the story of that first year was, okay, we've got a foundation built. Now let's see what can happen when we get this new group of guys in the lineup.
Alton takes a nice shot, low single. He's going to finish that. Make it 5-1 with a minute 36.
They got a commitment from the Alton twins pretty early when Cael got there, and they were these identical twins from Pennsylvania. They were both ranked number 1 at their weight class. They were really dynamic, very highly sought after brothers, and they got those guys. So you're just kind of seeing the writing on the wall that in 2010, 2011, they're gonna put a ton of talent on the mat.
And there's Jenkins gonna get the first takedown here. State college battle. Taylor up to his feet.
I'm just, staying in the room, beating up on everybody that I can, and, staying in the classroom and doing what I got to do, just, to put myself in the best position to help our team out, pretty much. I mean, that room is so competitive, like, you don't want to get in there and slack off because the next guy to you or the guy behind you is working just as hard. So, it's competitive, and I think it's a really good thing. It helps the team grow, and we bond really well. Like, a lot of us, we just get in there and get after it, and we learn from each other, and we grow off of that.
That's a dirty one.
Bubba Jenkins, he talked in this manner that you would think he was kind of playing this big brother role on the team, and that he was a leader in the Penn State room. And then a couple weeks later, news comes out he's getting released. It was shocking to a lot of the wrestling world, and I think surprising to Bubba, at least to a certain extent.
I'm looking. You got my good side. What are we looking like?
You look good. You look good.
They are such stark opposites as people.
I'm back. Yes, sir.
Bubba likes to talk, and he likes the limelight. I couldn't see that working in any forum, especially as a new coach trying to have full buy-in from your athletes. I don't know. I just never saw that working.
When I got released by Cael, that was the last time I stepped on the mat. And I went to go try to work out with Tion. Cael didn't let me, he won't let me back on the facility. So I kind of just been sticking in conditioning, trying to just stay on my run.
I think Cael wanted to run the program how he wanted to run the program, and I don't think Cael Sanderson is a compromising individual. Bubba, from a lineup perspective, wasn't probably going to fit because David Taylor was going to be a 57-pounder, and that was the weight that Bubba would probably want to go and would eventually go.
You know, the Bubba Jenkins situation caught so many wrestling people off guard because people didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. They didn't know that Bubba Jenkins was not necessarily cooperating with the coaching staff. They didn't know Bubba Jenkins had tanked his semester academically so that he couldn't be put in the lineup in the second semester.
When you're trying to come in and change the culture of a program like Cael was, I could see how Bubba Jenkins wouldn't fit in that plan.
It communicated that Cael Sanderson is doing things differently, right? He is not keeping Bubba Jenkins around, even if that is his most accomplished athlete on his team. And, you know, it felt like, all right, Bubba, if you don't fit this Penn State mold, if you don't fit this Cael Sanderson mold, then you're gone, you're out of here, and that's what happened.
I'm gonna be back on my P's and Q's and be dotting my I's, crossing my T's, and a lot of people out there are gonna be in some real trouble because I really have a chip on my shoulder now, especially feeling like one of the best wrestlers in the country at 2 weight classes and not getting the opportunity by, you know, people who have control over my career other than me.
Winner by decision, Bubba Jenkins.
16-7.
Pounds, we have Andrew Long, Iowa State. Jared Patterson, Oklahoma. Nice shot, Long. Takedown, blows through that doubles, almost like a body lock. Goes right to a tilt.
I'm not sure how many coaches would decide to, keep a guy that is a national finalist away from the team for now. What was the decision? Why was the decision made? And
first of all, I love Andrew Long. I could put him on the team right now, and he'll win for us, and he'll be a point getter for us. But that's not the big picture. The big picture is what's going to happen when his career is over. What's going to happen 5-6 years from now when he looks back at the program and Coach Jackson and staff and asks us, were we really out for his best interest?
Andrew Long was with Cael Sanderson at Iowa State before Cael left, and as a freshman, he made the NCAA finals, was a runner-up at 125 pounds, but people knew that he was having some off-the-mat issues, that he was in trouble with the law and having problems with substances. So Kevin Jackson, the new coach at Iowa State, made it known that Andrew Long could be as successful as he wanted to be as a wrestler, but that he wasn't going to be part of that Iowa State team unless he figured a few things out. Well, middle of the year, 2010-2011, just like that, he's in that Penn State lineup almost immediately.
Cael walks into a program like Penn State. He has all these resources being poured into the team. There's an expectation to win, and that expectation is sooner rather than later.
I think Cael wanted to roll the dice and hope that, one, he could provide some stability for Andrew, but also he brings Andrew Long there knowing we need these points at 133 pounds if we're going to win NCAAs this year.
I think some part of Coach Sanderson and his staff probably believed that they knew Andrew Long well enough to set him on the right path. But, I mean, when it comes down to it, they needed him as much as he needed them, for sure.
157 pounds. We've got for Penn State, 6th ranked freshman David Taylor. He's taking on Sean Bilodeau from Lehigh. Taylor in on a single. Quickly, he's behind, he's to the corner, has not scored yet. There's 2 points. So look to score here. Ruth, though, fires on a shot. It's Ruth looking to score.
2011 started out with signs that this was going to be a really exciting team. They had a duel with Lehigh, and Lehigh was a strong program at the time, but Penn State had all these young, high-powered freshmen who just scored bonus points, wrestled like freshmen aren't supposed to perform, and had so much success. So you knew it was going to be a special team then.
Ooh, nice level change, and a headlock! Whoa!
Andrew Alton basically stole the show for this duel. He hits this beautiful duck under to a headlock that is like one of the most highlight reel moves you'll ever see in wrestling. And Rec Hall's going nuts, and he slaps the mat, and it's this huge thing. And in that moment, you're like, whoa, there's something definitely different about Penn State this year. So they look amazing against Lehigh. They're scoring with such ease against these guys.
Now he's looking for near fall. Taylor with the tilt. Gets a quick 2 count, and he's still counting.
We preach bonus points every day. Don't beat a guy by 5 when you can beat him by 8. Don't beat a guy by 12 when you can pin him. And we had 2 guys go out and get the pins that made the difference.
Taylor looking for a ball.
We learned where Ed Ruth was at the Southern Scuffle. He picks apart Mac Lunas. Mac Lunas was the #1 guy coming into that season. He had given up only 2 takedowns the year before, and Ed Ruth took him down several times in just 1 match. Dominated Mac Lunas. Then he beats Chris Heinrich, another stud from UVA at the Southern Scuffle. And then just like that, people are saying, okay, Ed Ruth can win the NCAA title this year.
What a tournament by Ed Ruth. #1, #2 in the country, establishing himself as the man at this weight.
Wrestling out of his doggone skin.
That was impressive. This is trouble. Wade's in good shape here.
Starting to see like these guys are not only exciting in terms of style, but the kinds of wins they're gonna rack up are gonna be really, really good. So throughout that Big Ten dual meet season, everyone thought maybe Penn State is for real, right? Maybe they're gonna win this thing. But the team that was standing in their way was Iowa. Iowa had been this dominant legacy team that was either winning titles or in the conversation to win a title for the last several decades.
The heat is on this weekend, guys. Heading up to Pennsylvania to catch #7 Iowa versus #1 Penn State. Huge duel. Iowa 3-time national champs. Penn State just hammers, young hammers, and they are dominating. This match is gonna be crazy. Iowa riding their 1 million streak or whatever it is.
The Penn State-Iowa duel was by far the most anticipated duel of the year. You wanted to see, can Cael get over the hump against Iowa, this team that had his number when he was at Iowa State. I don't believe he ever beat him in a duel. He didn't beat him at NCAAs. He was always kind of looking up at Iowa. And then you're like, okay, this is the time. Penn State's going to beat Iowa at Rec Hall, and it's going to be the beginning of this thing. And they didn't do it. Andrew Alton goes up big against Montel Marion, fades. Montel comes back. At 184, you expect Quentin Wright to beat Grant Gambrell. Gambrell beats him. Wright's kind of hurt, and Gambrell's just running behind him, hitting all these go-behinds against Quentin Wright, and Iowa wins.
17-6. Iowa wins. Iowa wins.
It just kind of planted that seed of doubt in people's minds, like, okay, maybe it's not yet. Maybe it's still Iowa's time.
Do you think that what happened tonight, it could possibly be a good thing for you guys?
We lose. There's so much you can take from that rather than a win. So I think that we're just going to, take off after this.
Then there was Big Tens, and coming into that last session, Iowa was leading Penn State by, I think, 12.5 points. Both teams had 9 guys wrestling for a medal, and the question was, can Penn State close that gap? Can they beat Iowa, who is yet again right in front of them? And it was an incredible session. Penn State went 9 for 9. They had 3 bonus point wins, but the bonus point wins they got did not come from their All-Americans. They came from Brad Pataki at 125. They came from James Volrath at 165, who didn't even qualify for NCAAs. And they came from Cameron Wade at heavyweight. And they ended up beating Iowa by just 1 point. It was like, finally, Penn State can overcome this Iowa team that's the legacy team. That's the team that's won so many titles for so many years, and now felt like, okay, Penn State's got a real shot at winning this NCAA championship.
So the 2011 NCAA team race was going to be insane because you had Penn State, who had lost to Iowa and then beat them by 1 single point at the Big Ten championships. Then you have Cornell. Cornell and Penn State tied at the Southern Scuffle that year. So you have a 3-horse race, and coming into it, no one really knew who was going to win.
It's definitely tense right now. Everybody wants to win. All of our teammates, hopefully they don't wear a whole lot of pressure on their shoulders when they're wrestling.
It seems like a giant chunk of the wrestling community said, you know, Penn State, they're going to win it, they're going to do it.
You know, that's what you want. You know, you want the great opportunities and the big matches, and so I mean, we're in a position to do well at the tournament. That's couldn't ask for anything else.
Things definitely did not go all Penn State's way, especially early on. A couple guys that Penn State was counting on to hopefully bring home All-American honors were not able to.
141, Andrew Allen, the superstar true freshman, lost in the round of 12 to a guy he had beaten twice that season already. At heavyweight, Cam Wade, who was the hero at Big Tens, was unable to place. Ed Ruth lost in the quarterfinals unexpectedly. That sets up the 157 final between David Taylor and Bubba Jenkins.
What's changed about your game since the last time you guys drilled together and wrestled each other?
I've gotten better.
Yeah. Expand on it?
Gotten better in every single position. I'm very capable of winning a national title tomorrow. I just got to go out and wrestle. That's the bottom line.
All through this entire season, David Taylor is just destroying everybody. He has an incredibly high bonus rate. He is just untouched. David Taylor's NCAA season as a freshman was outstanding. He was a Big Ten champ. He was undefeated going into NCAAs. And then he beat an undefeated Steve Fittery of American to set up the NCAA final against Bubba Jenkins. Now, if you look at Bubba's season, Bubba took losses during the year. He lost to a guy that was totally off the radar. He had some close matches throughout his NCAA tournament run. The prevailing thought was, this will be David Taylor this time. He's so much better this year.
David Taylor, a freshman for Penn State, undefeated this year, a 4-time Ohio State high school.
You know, he had wrestled Bubba quite a few times in the practice room, but I don't think he questioned his ability to go out there and win that match.
And if there's a soap opera story, it's Bubba Jenkins versus Taylor.
I could still picture what I thought the match was going to happen, and it went the way I thought it was going to happen. You know, I thought, okay, first period, I'm going to be active, get him to react. Probably going to be 0-0. Got on a takedown, got on a high crotch, went to crack down, and just kind of cracked down. You know, he's got good hips. Tried cracking down a little lazy.
You know, for a second, it looked like there was going to be no problem with the takedown. And then a split second later, I saw the danger. I started yelling, you know, back up, back up, back up. But it was too late.
I think what he shot his high crotch, and Bubba slipped around into a cradle, and David's probably not been in a cradle ever before in his life. That may have been the first and last time. And, you know, got him.
It's a wrestling situation that happens to anybody. You know, a mistake was made, and you know, Bubba was a great wrestler, and he took advantage of it.
Bubba Jenkins, the senior from Virginia Beach, Virginia, a former national runner-up at Penn State, is now a national champion from Arizona State.
To this date, the Bubba Jenkins upset over David Taylor is as loud a moment I can remember at the NCAA tournament, because it was just such a shocking thing to see this undefeated freshman superstar who was going to be the next Cael Sanderson. This was going to be his first undefeated year, and you know, it was maybe no looking back for David Taylor from that point on.
Bubba Jenkins was basically told, you don't fit in this program, right? We don't have room for you. You got to go somewhere else. And so he went to Arizona State, and David Taylor was the prototype for what a Penn State wrestler was going to look like in this new Kale Sanderson era. And Bubba beats him, right? And he beat him in such a flashy way with the fall. Bubba throws the ankle bands up and shoots him down. I mean, it was just like the antithesis of a Kale Sanderson Penn State guy, this flashy kind of showboat.
Bubba's last match as a college wrestler comes down to not only are you wrestling a Penn State guy, the college where you went, but maybe the reason you aren't at Penn State you're staring across at that guy, right? That's a really crazy thing. Stuff like that doesn't really happen that much. So Bubba had this opportunity for the ultimate revenge, and he made the most of it.
I hate to lose, and one of my guys losing is just like, it's like me losing, and obviously, I don't do well with that.
He didn't think I was good enough or the right kid to win it at that weight class, or any weight class really. I wanted to go 49, but he had other ideals, and he got rid of me, and one man's trash is whole country's treasure. I played outside a lot on the swing sets and metal bars and played basketball. I didn't have too many toys and too many machines because I always broke them, always messed them up. And anytime my mom would buy a machine for me, something electrical, something that was supposed to work or do something, I always found ways to break it. And that's a machine out there. That was the Penn State kid. That was the the phenomena toy, I suppose. And I just found ways to break it and disassemble it.
The assumption for wrestling fans was that Penn State can win this if they get NCAA titles from David Taylor and from Ed Ruth, who had been incredibly dominant throughout the entire season. But Ed gets hurt in the quarterfinals, so he's not going to win it. David, he didn't win it, but ultimately they got a ton of contributions from the rest of the guys.
Andrew Long had a really solid showing at a tough weight class, placing third. Frank Molinaro made the finals, losing to Kyle Dake. Ed Ruth was able to wrestle back for third. You have Quentin Wright, who wins Big Tens, but Quentin Wright was up and down all year long, and they needed big points from this guy, and he's the 9 seed at NCAAs. The typical hope for a 9 seed at NCAAs is like, if this guy could place, that would be great. Quentin Wright won the thing. He gets the pin in the semifinals over Gambrell. Quentin, a 9 seed, who was the only one that was able to win NCAAs.
All those performances capped off with that Quentin Wright NCAA title were huge. Penn State was able to come up with an NCAA victory because they got contributions from guys that they weren't necessarily counting on. Penn State showed that when it comes down to it, even when the chips are down, they can find a way to get it done, and that's how they won their first title.
The 2011 Penn State season was the first season of Cael Sanderson's dominant run at Penn State. You've got Ed and David. This is just a once-in-a-lifetime, all-time duo that you're gonna get.
They're just like matching each other, pin for pin and tech for tech, and you have like the two most dominant guys in the country for a couple of years on the same team.
It felt like such a golden period to be a Cael Sanderson fan or a Penn State fan.